She leaned over my fence and sprayed my service dog directly in the face, shouting, "That mutt doesn't belong here." My dog yelped and scrambled backward toward me, whining as he tried to press himself against my leg. For a split second, I just froze, my brain refusing to accept what I'd just seen. Before I could even find my voice, she shouted louder, "I'm calling the cops. You can't bring that animal onto my street." Her voice echoed across the neighborhood, loud enough to pull curtains aside and drag curious faces into windows. I stood there gripping the leash, my heart hammering, because this wasn't just any pet. This was my certified service dog. Within minutes, 3 squad cars rolled up, lights flashing against the neat rows of houses. She pointed at me like the outcome had already been decided. "Officers, arrest him. He's violating HOA rules by bringing dangerous animals into Sunnyside." Neighbors gathered at the edges of their lawns, whispering while my dog lay on the grass beside me, still trembling. I forced myself to stay calm, even as my fists tightened at my sides. She smirked, convinced she had me cornered. One of the officers pulled out a small black handbook and flipped through it like it was sacred text. "Illegal pets law," Karen muttered under her breath, grinning at me like she had personally written every rule inside. The officers stood there waiting, the moment stretching long enough that it almost felt like I was already guilty, but inside, I knew something. Karen didn't. I took a slow breath and looked directly at the officer holding the book. He hadn't realized yet what law he was actually quoting or how badly Karen had just trapped herself. "Are you sure you want to go down this road?" I asked quietly, my voice steady. She scoffed loudly. "I've waited for this day. You people think you can do whatever you want. Not in Sunnyside." She laughed, completely unaware of the storm she had just stepped into. Because spraying a certified service dog wasn't an HOA issue. It was a federal crime. The officer hesitated when I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small laminated card. My hand didn't shake as I held it up so everyone could see. "This is federal identification," I said calmly. "Registered service animal, protected under federal law." The entire street fell silent. Even the neighbors who had been whispering stopped talking. My dog slowly lifted his head, blinking through the sting, and the sight made my jaw tighten. Karen rolled her eyes and crossed her arms. "Oh please, anyone can print one of those online. That mutt scared my grandson last week. I want him gone." She jabbed her finger toward me like she had legal authority. "He's lying. Arrest him already." The officer with the handbook flipped back a few pages, his brow furrowing. "Ma'am, it says right here interfering with the service animal is." He paused, glanced at me, then back at her. "A federal offense." Karen blinked, her smirk fading. "What? No, that's not." She turned toward the officers, suddenly desperate. "Don't you see what he's doing? He's tricking you." I crouched beside my dog, running a steady hand along his back, so he knew he was safe. My voice remained calm, but I spoke loud enough for the entire block to hear. "You just sprayed a working service animal in front of witnesses and for police officers." Gasps rippled through the gathered neighbors. One officer pulled up his body cam footage and rewound it. He pressed play. Karen's voice rang out from the speaker. "This mutt doesn't belong here." Her face drained of color. She stumbled backward, pointing at me. "No, that's not fair. He provoked me. He's dangerous. He's lying." But her words didn't matter anymore. The proof was already recorded. I could see the shift in the officers' expressions. They were done entertaining her fake authority. I straightened and met her panicked stare. "You wanted me arrested, Karen," I said evenly. "But the only person going to jail today is you." Her mouth fell open as the nearest officer stepped forward and pulled out his handcuffs. The metallic click made her flinch. "Wait, what are you doing?" she shouted, voice cracking. "I'm the one who called you. He's the problem." She tried to back away, but another officer blocked her path. "Ma'am," the sergeant said firmly, "you assaulted a federally protected service animal. That is a criminal offense. You are under arrest." Her face twisted with outrage. "Assault? Are you kidding me? It's just a dog." The entire block erupted. "That's not just a dog. my neighbor from across the street called out. That's a service animal. Phones came up as people began recording. For the first time, every set of eyes in Sunnyside was fixed on her. Karen spun around desperately. You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. I make the rules here. The officer with the handbook snapped it shut. Your HOA rules do not override federal law, he said coldly. And impersonating authority to harass residents may be another charge. The cuffs clicked around her wrists. This isn't over, she screamed. You'll regret this. Her voice echoed across the lawns. But no one moved to defend her. Not one neighbor. As they escorted her toward the squad car. My dog pressed against my leg, still shaking but safe. I knelt beside him. It's okay, buddy, I whispered. She can't hurt you anymore. Karen twisted back once, eyes burning with something darker than anger. That look told me she wasn't finished. Halfway to the cruiser, she suddenly jerked forward, trying to wrench free. You don't understand, she shrieked. I know people. I'll have your badges. The officers tightened their grip, but she kept thrashing. Ears edged closer, recording everything. Then she shouted the words that made my stomach tighten. Call my lawyer, Judge Wilkins. He'll shut this down. The sergeant froze for a fraction of a second. The officers exchanged uneasy looks. A judge wasn't just neighborhood bravado. Karen was connected. My pulse quickened as it sank in that she genuinely believed the system would protect her. She smirked through the sweat on her face. You're making the biggest mistake of your careers. Once Wilkins hears about this, I'll be out in an hour and you'll all be fired. The neighbors murmured nervously. Some lowered their phones. But not me. I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the tension. Funny you mentioned Judge Wilkins. I pulled out my phone. Karen's glare sharpened. Because I already sent the footage to someone outranks any HOA president and any friendly judge you think you have. The sergeant looked toward me. Who did you send it to? I met his eyes. The U.S. Attorney's office. The entire street went silent. Karen's smirk shattered. Color drained from her face. She shook her head violently. No, you didn't. You're bluffing. But deep down, she knew I wasn't. Karen's confidence fractured like glass. Her eyes flicked wildly across the crowd, hunting for anyone to step in and save her. But all she found were neighbors holding their phones high, whispering to each other, shaking their heads. For years, she had ruled this street with threats, fake warnings, and intimidation. Now, every camera lens was locked on her collapse. The sergeant spoke again, his voice firmer than before. Ma'am, you're already in custody. Threatening officers with supposed influence isn't going to help you. But Karen wasn't finished. She leaned forward against the officers restraining her, her voice rising into a desperate shriek. Judge Wilkins will bury you all. He's a personal friend. He owes me. I'll have every single charge erased. One of the officers holding her arm actually let out a quiet chuckle. He reached up and pulled the radio from his shoulder. Control. Run a quick check on Judge Wilkins' docket, he said calmly. Pause. Static. Then the reply crackled through. Copy. Judge Wilkins is currently under federal investigation for bribery. U.S. Marshals are involved. The crowd gasped. My jaw tightened. Karen froze mid-motion, her mouth hanging open. She tried to laugh, but her voice wobbled. That's not true. He wouldn't. He promised me. The sergeant didn't even look at her. Transport her, he ordered. Add obstruction of justice and conspiracy. This just went federal. As they pushed her toward the squad car, Karen completely lost control. Oh, this is my neighborhood. My rules, she screamed, kicking against the pavement. But this time, the crowd answered back. You're done, Karen. Someone shouted. About time. Another voice called out. Phone stayed raised as she was shoved into the back seat, her face red and streaked with sweat. The same woman who once taped fake eviction notices to doors was now pounding helplessly against the glass of a police cruiser. My dog leaned into me again. Calmer now, and I whispered softly, justice takes its time, buddy. But it always shows up, and in that moment, I knew she wasn't just losing her grip on me. She was losing everything. The squad car door slammed shut. Inside, Karen thrashed and screamed, her voice muffled through the glass, but still echoing across the cul-de-sac. "You'll regret this. Every one of you." Instead of fear, the neighborhood responded with something I had never seen before. Laughter. One of the dads down the block raised his phone and yelled, "Smile for Facebook, Karen." Someone else added, "More like goodbye, HOA Queen." For the first time in years, the people she terrorized weren't hiding behind curtains. They stood shoulder to shoulder. Mrs. Ramirez, the elderly woman who once cried after Karen fined her for illegal flowers, stepped forward. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "We're not afraid of you anymore," she said, staring at the cruiser. "Not after this." A cheer rose up. Quiet at first, then louder as others joined in. I stayed silent, holding my dog close. But inside, something shifted. This wasn't just about me anymore. Karen's arrest had shattered a chain wrapped around the entire street. The sergeant turned to me. "We'll need your statement," he said, his tone respectful now. "And the footage you mentioned. This case is going far beyond local." Before I could respond, a neighbor called out, "Show him the notice, the fake HOA letter she put on your door." Their neighbor rushed forward, waving a thick stack of papers. "She's been forging signatures for years. We've got proof." The officers exchanged looks. "This is bigger than we thought," one muttered. Karen saw it through the glass. Her eyes widened as panic fully set in. This wasn't one charge anymore. Everything was unraveling. She screamed and banged on the window, but her voice was swallowed by something she could no longer control, the sound of her neighbors cheering her downfall. Blue and red lights still flashed when a black SUV rolled onto the street. No sirens, dark windows, the kind of vehicle that didn't belong to local police. Two men in suits stepped out, badges catching the light. The crowd fell silent instantly. These weren't HOA enforcers. They weren't even regular cops. The sergeant straightened. "Federal agents?" One of the men nodded. "U.S. Marshals. We'll be taking custody of the suspect." He glanced toward the squad car, where Karen had gone from rage to visible terror, her forehead pressed to the glass. "We've been tracking her network for months." The paperwork was handed over without hesitation. When the cuffs were transferred, Karen exploded again. "This is illegal. You can't do this to me. I own this neighborhood." The marshal didn't flinch. "Ma'am, you don't own anything. You're being charged with harassment, forgery, conspiracy, obstruction, and federal assault of a service animal." Her legs buckled. The sight of Karen, the woman who once strutted from porch to porch like a queen, now sagging in federal custody, sent cheers through the crowd. Phones flashed like fireworks. I crouched beside my dog and stroked his head. "She's finished, buddy. You're safe now." His tail thumped weakly against the grass, and the tight knot in my chest finally loosened. Karen shrieked one last time as they loaded her into the SUV. "This isn't the end. You'll regret crossing me." The heavy door slammed shut, sealing her voice away. For the first time in years, the street was quiet, peaceful. The marshal turned back to me, his expression softening. "You did the right thing. People like her always think they're untouchable until they aren't." He nodded and climbed into the SUV. Moments later, it rolled away, carrying Karen and every ounce of her fake power out of Sunnyside for good. Night settled over the street. Crickets hummed. Neighbors gathered in small groups, laughing, now swapping stories of every petty rule and threat Karen had ever used. The street that once felt heavy finally felt alive. I sat on the curb with my dog's head in my lap, rubbing behind his ears. He was still shaken, but his eyes never left mine. "Nobody will ever hurt you again," I whispered. "Not while I'm breathing, Mrs. Ramirez came over and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Thank you," she said softly, "for standing up when the rest of us couldn't." Others nodded behind her. For years, they'd lived in her shadow. Tonight, that weight was gone. I looked around, kids playing barefoot again, couples standing on porches, veterans standing tall, and felt something deeper than relief, pride. Not just in myself, in everyone who refused to be bullied anymore. I took a slow breath and spoke. "So they could all hear. I didn't fight for this country so someone with the fake rulebook could tell me I don't belong on my own land." We all deserve better, the crowd applauded. Some even cheered. My dog gave a soft bark, earning smiles all around. As moonlight washed over the quiet street, I stood, leash in hand. Karen was gone, but her fall left behind something stronger than any HOA notice: community, real community, and for the first time in a long time, Sunnyside finally felt like home. Deep down, I knew that truth would stay with me forever. Justice may take its time, but when it comes, it's worth every second.